Just a little background information. In 1993, a cross-sectional study was done in endurance runners that demonstrated an inverse correlation between lumbar spine bone mineral density versus weekly running mileage. Now, the study demonstrated that these elite male runners had a 19% decrease in bone mineral content and a 20 to 30% increase in bone turnover markers. So the study is suggesting that these long-distance runners had higher bone turnover, leading to reduced bone mass. Looking at sodium bone, there were early studies done in the 1950s, so this isn't a new concept to us. But in these animal studies, they found that there was 40% of whole sodium locked up in these animal bones. Another study done in 2009 made rats hyponatremic for 3 months. This showed a 30% reduction in bone density. The picture on the left is a normal atremic rat femur, and the picture on the right is the rat femur after purposely lowering the blood sodium levels, and we can actually see the thinning of both the trabecular and cortical bone. Now that we know that's been done in humans, what about hyponatremia, in animals, what about in humans? So preliminary data was collected on ultramarathon runners for competing in the Western State 100-mile trail run. It started with 18 subjects, but only 6 finished due to the demands of the race. And looking at these DEXA results, there was no pre to post race difference in bone mineral content. And typically studies do look at pre and post differences, but they don't look at relationships. However, there is a relationship shown here with a strong association with total bone mineral content and change in blood sodium. And then runners whose blood sodium concentration decreased the most demonstrated the greatest loss of bone mineral at the end of the 100-mile race, and we thereby hypothesized sodium stored in the bone was actually liberated into the bloodstream to protect against hyponatremia in these ultramarathon runners. Looking back at our present study, we have a couple questions. Is high sweat sodium associated with low bone mineral density? And does sodium supplementation protect against bone loss in runners during a 45-minute run? Our methods for this was a 2 single-blinded randomized control crossover trial. Healthy runner was defined as no prescription medications and running at least 30 miles a week for a month. They came to the lab after 4 hours of being fasted and no exercise. Pre and post testing was the same, which included body mass, DEXA scan, blood sodium, plasma protein, urine sodium, and sweat sodium. Sweat was actually collected 3 different times. Pre and postly, it was collected by pilocarpine iontophoresis, so chemically induced, and then during the run, it was actively collected by a macroduct that was placed on the forearm. And before the run even took place, there was an intervention. They would either have a placebo tablet or 3 grams of sodium tablets ingested with 200 milliliters of apple juice, a 60-minute rest, and then they would get on the treadmill for a self-selected speed for 45 minutes. Now, after 2 elite cross-country runners became ill within minutes of ingesting these sodium tablets, that part of the study was abandoned. Looking at the results, we had 7 male runners complete the placebo arm of the trial. The mean age was 29, body mass 84 kilograms, height was 1.8 meters, and BMI was 25.6 kilograms per meter squared. Looking at the changes in body composition, it was done in grams, so it was really small. There was very little loss in fat mass. Almost 1 gram of lean mass was lost. Bone mineral density didn't change, similar to the ultramarathon trial. And body mass was a 1% change, which relates to the lean compartment, which we would expect to see without any type of fluid replacement. As an average, there was little difference between pre, during, and post-run sweat, and sodium concentration was between 55 and 56, which we would expect to see. Runners who had the highest salt in their sweat during the run was associated with an increase in bone mineral density. This is what we didn't expect to see. However, looking at post-run sweat, we see a negative association with blood sodium. And this is what we would expect to see in respect to the bone. And this also supports the theory that people with high sweat sodium are more at risk for hyponatremia during a long race. And post-run versus pre-run sweat concentration really didn't change much in intra-individuals. And in conclusion, is high sweat sodium associated with low bone mineral density? No, but the data does suggest that total bone mineral density and sweat sodium can change dynamically during treadmill running and is likely interlinked between sodium balance. Higher post-run sweat sodium was associated with low post-run blood sodium. And runners with high sweat sodium are at greater risk for hyponatremia during prolonged endurance events. Chemically induced sweat was fairly consistent between pre and post, but it was actually different than the actively collected sweat. And looking at the clinical implications of sodium in bone, we have to realize that salt is not only related to high blood pressure, but it's also related to our bones. We are absolutely going to continue to study this because bone is a dynamic warehouse of shifting mineral stores, and we think it can change every minute. So we really hope that you stay tuned for more, and thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know.